Hello everyone, thanks for dropping by. Happy New Year to you all, and I hope you had a nice Christmas. My cold is more or less cleared up. I've still got a little bit of frog in my throat type affection, but apart from that, I'm practically back to normal. For a start, that's the Mercedes-Benz equivalent to the Cadillac Escalade, and it's an all-electric version. The price of that is the same as the Cadillac Escalade, so if you're that kind of money, you can either go General Motors way with the ICE engine or Mercedes-Benz with the all-electric drive. That is probably going to be the future, and General Motors will have to play catch-up. Anyway, over the Christmas period, I've had a look around to see what I could find about marriage, MGTOW and all the rest, and I came across this article. As you can see, it's Brides Magazine, which is a magazine predominantly aimed at women, and it's written by women, and it's more or less a female-concentric magazine. It says, living apart together, why is it, what is it, and why couples do it. Now, this was written by a lady called Dina Gatchman, that's her there, and it was written on the 31st of October 2022, and it's reviewed by a mental health counsellor, another lady called Landis Bija, that's her there. Now, it says, living apart together refers to couples who are in an intimate relationship but choose to live separately for various reasons. The reasons can be financial, personal, or both. In other words, people that are married but they're living in separate houses. What could possibly go wrong? To learn more about this growing trend, well, they would say that, wouldn't they? We consulted two experts, a Bella Di Paolo and Sherry Sims Allen. And it says, but hey, if it works for Gwyneth Paltrow, she's rich, and her husband Brad Falchuk, he's also rich, maybe it'll work for you. Maybe, but probably not. We are in a whole new era of couples living apart. Well, they would say that to drum up support for it. Couples used to live apart mainly because they had no choice, of course. It's called courting. For example, one or both had good jobs in different cities or countries and they couldn't give up. Well, then, they would, if they really loved each other, they'd find a way forward. But that's still the case in some, but the trend of choosing to live apart, regardless of your job situation, is on the rise. It's called singlehood. Let's see what that brings up. Nope, nothing important. She adds, what is relatively new or newly getting recognized, by whom I should say, are couples living apart because they want to, or at least one person in the couple wants to. That would be the woman. She probably wants to be married but continue riding the cock carousel. Just like some people are choosing marriage or having children later on. Again, the 30 years old, she's had her fun and now she wants to settle down. Some are choosing to go a different route when it comes to their marriage, especially for people who have spent their 20s and 30s single and living alone. Independence can be tough to give up. Of course, that's the whole basis of marriage. You give up your singlehood to start a life together with somebody that you love. I see to the possible growing trend, well, she would say that, as singles look at ways to connect that won't cost them their preferred lifestyle or way of life. Now that comes across as incredibly narcissistic and cynical and selfish. A possible growing trend as singles look to ways to connect that won't cost them their preferred lifestyle or way of life. In other words, they want the cake and they eat it at the same time. And then it goes, here are some things to think about if you're curious about maintaining a lat romance. And it's why live apart. Couples love each other, feel that they need to live in the same house. They don't feel they need to live in the same house to express their togetherness. Again, that comes across as incredibly selfish. So So some people who choose to live apart because of personal preferences, they have an arrangement that is outside the box of traditional marriage. Now let's see what this says about traditional marriage. 8 times the marriage style. You can read that yourself. It says maybe having your own dedicated space is crucial for your well-being. Well, if you want your own dedicated space, you stay single. And your partner understands that. Yeah, but what if the partner doesn't understand it? It's a conversation that should happen early on and both partners should be on board. No, it's not a conversation. You either become married and a couple and live together and build a future together, or you don't get married. Or at least willing to try and see if it's right for their relationship. We know where that goes. Then it goes pros and cons. Is it right for you? Let's see pros and cons. Living apart means decorating however you want, making your own schedule, seeing friends and relatives without feeling guilty about splitting time with your spouse. Again, that comes across as you want to get married but continue living the single life. And then, is it right for you? I can see things happening in this to muck it up. What if she gets pregnant by the local Chad or Tyrone? What if he meets a woman in a bar and has a one-night stand and he knocks her up? Who has custody of the children? How are the children going to be affected? If these people living apart, what if they get divorced? Who has the house? He's living in a house, she's living in a house. Is he paying for it, or is she paying for her own house? All sorts of things can happen. It comes across as people who are incredibly selfish and self-centered, and they don't really are suitable for a married life. There's also the possibility that they'll grow apart and seek out a new love who lives closer to home. That's what I just said. The key to combating these challenges, according to Sims Allen, is that both partners need to remain flexible. Now, what does she mean by that? Communicate about the fact that things aren't working. Marriage is difficult. You hit rough patches. And stay open to going the more traditional route if it's worth it. If it's worth it to you both, yeah. Like any relationship, it's a process that works well for a few months or years and might not feel so ideal later on down the road. Well, it's hard lines for that. If you're not happy with it, why get married in the first place? Marriage, you have to work at it. My parents were married for just short of 70 years. Both my 2 brothers, with their wives, have been both married for close on 50 years. Our Colin is the oldest, about 55 years, and our Jeff about 52 years. All marriages have rough patches. It's all part of being married. You take the rough with the smooth. It's called living together and building a future together. It's a process that works well for a few months or years. In other words, this sounds like short-termism, and that's no good for anyone. Is it right for you? And then it tells you whether it is or not. Now, that was done on the 31st of October. Fox News got wind of this article and they jumped on the bandwagon. This was done on the 18th of December. Whoops. The last year, married couples are living apart together, but is it the win-win strategy media says it is? And this was written by another woman. I clicked on that, and there's no picture of her. Nearly 4 million married Americans living away from their spouses, according to US Census Bureau. Maybe. Now, that's the article about it. A growing number of Americans embracing a marriage trend. Let's click on that, see what that brings up. Nope, nothing. Was it? Too quick there, Christopher. Let's have a... Marie Osborne debunks a new look of rare photographs. I remember her. Sorry about that. Couples choose this arrangement for a variety of reasons, but the New York Times claimed the trend was primarily driven by women. Not surprised there. seeking independence and personal space to have time for their own interests and self-fulfillment. In other words, women want the cake and they want to eat it as well. They want to be married, but they want to continue riding the cock carousel. And if a more suitable guy comes along, they'll simply divorce their husband and then move along to this other guy called Monk, and it's known as monkey branching. The pandemic, that's the old excuse again, may have played a role in the increase because gender disparities in marriage became more pronounced, especially for mothers. In other words, the woman's thing. Nearly 4 million married Americans live alone, according to data from the Census Bureau. This does not include couples, it includes married individuals who are forced to live apart due to the military. Well, that's understandable. However, Americans seeking this arrangement have skyrocketed more than 25% between 2000 and 2019. And then it goes some examples. A lady called Connie Ordman, she decided to move out the family home after 18 years of marriage. She sounds selfish. I remember who I am by myself, remember what I like doing by myself, and that was a lovely gift. If that's the case, why'd she get married in the first place? Brian's Magazine, that's this article again, was the source of it all. Praise the idea is more romantic than living together and the secret of a long and happy, healthy marriage for some couples. Well, they would say that, wouldn't they? The Guardian columnist, that's a left-wing rag here in Britain, Emma Brooks, another woman, Brocketts, suggested the situation could be a win-win for both spouses. In other words, she means the woman. This whole living apart thing all seems to be in favour of women having the cake and eat it. The acceptance of non-traditional, i.e. the alphabet crowd, and same-sex relationships also makes this unusual model more socially acceptable. Well, same-sex marriage isn't really socially acceptable, it's just been bulldozed through by vested interests. For Evian Whitney and Jonathan Mead, a queer couple, living apart helped challenge heteronormative. And what the bloody hell does that mean? Let's look that up. Sorry about this, people. Heteronormative meaning. Heteronormative, denoting or relating to a worldview that promotes heterosexuality, i.e. normality, as the normal and preferred sexual orientation. In other words, this is a couple of sexual oddballs who are helping to challenge the normal script of how nature intended men and women to be. It made caring for myself and putting my own pleasure and my needs first so much easier. MX. That would be Miss, but they put an X instead. And that sounds like another case of women wanting the cake and eating it first, even with the alphabet crowd. It's a ridiculous domestic insanity thing, which the American media are jumping on and saying this is the growing trend and everyone should do it. And then it goes another example, and then that's the article. How will it affect MGTOW? Not a lot, but MGTOW seems to be having some effect on America, as I came across this yesterday. Senator Hawley, young men need to step up, get married and have families. The US Senator Joe Hawley, a Republican for MO. That could be Montana. I don't know if a senator has a higher political pecking order position than a congressman. Not being an American, maybe you can tell me. He's got some advice for young American guys. Skip the porn and date a real woman. And he said in recent speech to young conservatives, amplified the message in an appearance on the Tucker Carlson show. That would be Tucker Carlson, and that's the guy in question. Well, somebody got to be honest and tell the truth to these young men. Truth that the porn industry is selling them is a total lie. Well, of course it is. The porn industry, what you see, is just a performance. Porn sex is different from real sex. The only similarity is penis and penetrating vaginas. Apart from that, what you see in the screen, the positions that they go in, you probably wouldn't ever get in real sex. And he said the truth is American society needs them. We need them to step up. In other words, the growing number of MGTOWs in America are starting to affect the way the workforce is with a diminishing birth rate. The American society needs them for more wage slaves. We need them, i.e. the government, to have more tax revenue. We need them to get married and have families and be responsible husbands and fathers. In other words, this guy wants American guys to go back on the plantation to maintain the status quo. And took what they call it, they don't want to be sold the same bill of goods anymore, so one needs to tell them the truth. Then he blamed liberal culture, blah, blah, blah. But it seems that MGTOW is starting to have an effect on the upper echelons of American society, as the number of guys not bothering with marriage or children are probably going to have a dramatic effect. And he sees what's coming down the road, and he's squeaking out about it. Whether it's going to have any effect on American guys, that is anyone's guess. But this is the domestic insanity that's currently doing the rounds in America, and sexual oddballs and minority groups like the alphabet crowd are probably jumping on the bandwagon, and daft buggers that think that the wives should have all the say, and the women especially that want to live the cock carousel riding life as living apart together. I might try and find some more information about this later on in the week, but for now I think I'm over the 10-minute mark, so you know the routine, people. Like, comment, subscribe. It's completely up to you. So until next Monday, that's it. Bye-bye.